Hello and welcome to the Shamans Cave. And we did not get together before we launched today to decide that we were both going to be in red, but we both must be feeling really festive for the holidays. So I'm Renee Barabo, the Practical Shaman.
And I'm Sandra Ingerman, and I don't wear red that often, so we must have been tuning into each other, which is always wonderful.
I know it's like we're shaman sisters and from another mother. Isn't that what they say? Yeah, we're shaman sisters from another mother.
And from probably from the same mother really early on.
That's right. I think I wrote that on the Shaman's Cave wall this week that the Swami always said there's only a very few mothers,
Right.
really, that if we track all the way back, because there's been a lot of interest lately in our ancestors course. And let me say at the beginning, all of our replays, and we're almost at a whole year's worth of them now, are over at shamanstv.com, and it's called under a tab called episodes. So, and the other thing is there's a really nice search feature on the website. So you can go to the website and say you're looking for a certain thing, just put it in the search bar and you'll get all of the shows that had that topic about it, because we use keywords and stuff like that. So we try to make it as simple as possible. And then, so that's kind of in reverse. We usually save that for the end, but since we're both in red, we're both fiery, ready to go.
Ready to go. And I really want to thank Renee for all the work that she does on the website, because that's not my forte. And so she's doing the bulk of that work, and deep appreciation, because that's how the show gets to you every week. And so I'm really excited because Renee is teaching a new course through the Shift Network. And as the show goes on, we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of taking workshops and why they're worth your time, and the pros about it and the cons of trying to learn about shamanism on Facebook, and what that ends up doing to the practice and what that ends up doing to the collective. And so Renee is getting ready to offer this fabulous course through the Shift Network. And those of you who have been listening to the shows, I think you've gotten a sense that Renee can really go out there and she can come up with something really different. I'm in absolute awe of her creativity. And so, Renee, first of all, I know that the course is involving how to use the wind to let go of some of the negativity in her life. Can you share a little bit about what your vision of the course is about?
Sure. And this interesting thing is the course is about becoming a wind alchemist. And I never would say those words out loud. So when the team got together and they heard what I was talking about and they pulled out alchemy from it, it was like there was a couple things that happened, but they gave it permission to have this alchemical moment of what the wind can really do for you. And we just got so far out of relationship with nature over the last 10,000 years that we used to have this direct ability to have an alchemical moment. And if you look at some of the mythology, like Ilmarinen, the Finnish wind god, he was an alchemist. He went with he called in the four directions. He went into his smithy, blew in the wind and pulled out like a sampo. He had a magical sampo that, had the grain, the salt, and the gold. And that was just commonplace. And over these last 10,000 years, we've lost the ability to be our own alchemists of transformation. And anyone who's ever taken a course knows that, I go deep, and it's always a chemical. And what's the greatest part about the wind is the wind does all the work. I mean, I show you a few practices, and Sandra always says I'm very creative, but but the truth is that once you invite these winds of spirit in, they take over.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I share that about the practice of shamanism, period, is once you make a connection with the spirits, it's not about your relationship with the human teacher. It's about your relationship with the spirits. And that's something that most people miss in today's modern day world is we become so dependent on our teachers to feed us all the information, where shamanism is a practice of direct revelation. And my God, once you open that door onto a shamanic path, the spirits decide for you how they're going to reshape you, how they're going to resculpt you, every way that they're going to change your life. And we keep asking on Facebook these questions when it's the spirits we should be asking. And so this might be too general a question, but how do the winds work with people in this particular way?
Well, for example, I'll just tell you a quick example of how they worked with me while I was writing this course was for the last, 5 years, I've been blowing the wind whistle one way. And all of a sudden, a couple of weeks ago, they said, no. All right, now you've mastered that part. Let me show you how we want you to play the wind whistle going forward. And that's just for me, but I have a student who started with us, and I'm telling you, she's like a natural. And so she started with the Wind Mastery program last year. And, within the Wind Mastery program, she closed her yoga practice. She had to sit with no wind for the summer. And then all of a sudden, she announced the other day in the book study that this whole new job came through for her. And I'm getting the chills that she's going to now work with hospice.
Oh, wow.
And I always called her kind of my closeted shaman kind of in the group, like that everybody in her town knew her as this yoga teacher and she could step that far in. But the wind was like, oh no, honey, you're going to be on this magic carpet ride and you are now going to step fully in. And through, her year working with me, now she's going to be one of the assistants in the class.
Wow.
And so, yeah, because the thing is it's new work. Well, it's new old work. So like you have students who have been with you for 25, 30 years, right? You have very loyal fans. And the part of this work is finding those 25, 30 people who are really going to take this work deeper too, who are going to carry the work forward into the world because it's just starting.
Right.
If I'm just learning how to breathe with it again in a new way, just think where you could take this work into your own life.
Yeah, and so is the major theme, from what I can get, is about being able to let go of negative patterns.
Yes, and how this is going to work is, again, this is wind driven. Okay. So I had to have my spiritual teacher help me put it into like a coherent pattern. But for the last 7 years, I've been teaching this process in the fall called the Fall Wind Mastery, where I actually had people put their significant events onto a timeline and then look at how these events have either been what they call positive or, great experiences or things that they'd rather not ever relive. And what's going to happen in this particular class is then we're going to take that timeline and we're actually going to move it through a process that was revealed to me, direct revelation, as Sandra is always talking about what would be a good way of moving this linear timeline into more of a sacred timeline, which is cyclical. And the process itself is going to be alchemical, but then what we're going to do is we're going to actually work with these. So say you take your linear timeline and then you put it onto a cyclical timeline with this process that I've come up with, then we're going to actually come up with the archetypical naming of each of our quadrants of our new of this cyclical calendar that we make that shows say I learned that, wow, every fall I'm there like, oh my God, my job's going to end. And this has been like a pattern for 6 years. Yep. This is it. I'm done. And, so maybe my archetypical pattern is, woman who crows with the waning moon, so we're going to actually name it. And then there's some alchemical work that we're going to do once we name them all. And then we're going to actually claim a new wind name for the process. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm really, really excited about it. And, it's kind of, it's an interesting process. And trust me, the winds have revealed it every single step of the way. I'm like busy taking wind notes.
Yeah, and the work that you always do, I mean, one of the things I love about your work is you don't do anything surface. You either go as deep as possible or you don't do it. So I know that this is going to be a transformative course for everybody.
Absolutely. And one of the parts that I've been playing with for the last few years, and most of the wind mastery students know about it, is that one of the things about the wind gods and goddesses, they were all creator gods. So when I boiled that down, I've been working with 5 dynamics of creativity. So not only are we going to look at what the timeline was, how we're going to bend it per se, and then we're going to look at how we do this personally. So do I do it very orderly, like a process order, or do I just throw it all to the wind and chaos, or do I have to go take a walk in nature? And so we're going to actually look at how we create, so we can then choose a couple of these dynamics to take what we want our goals for next year and how the dynamic would work best. It might be better to be a process order if you're launching a new course and you've got to write it, but maybe you need some chaos in there so that it's more of a creative course than just an orderly set of steps. So yeah, there's a combination in this workshop of new and old ideas, things that I've time tested and things that the winds are saying, no, it's time to reveal this next piece now.
Oh, that's exciting.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah. And the way the Shift Network works is first what they do is an intro call that usually is about some other topic, not just about the course. And then the call moves into talking about the course. But all organizations have their own way of working, and how the Shift Network works is they want you to sign up for the intro call. It's free. And so they want you to sign up for the intro call, whether you listen to it or not, before you actually register for the class. So go to Shamans Cave, the Facebook page, or go to shamanstv.com and click on that link that gets you into the intro call. And then whether you listen to it or not, the intro calls are always incredibly interesting. Whoever the host is on the intro calls, they're very knowledgeable about the workshop. And so it ends up being a deep and interesting conversation. But even if you decide not to, I don't want to do the intro call, but I know I want to work with Renee. I'm ready to sign up. You still need to click that link.
Right.
So, and then you'll get all the information coming from the Shift Network. And if at some point you go, oh my God, I clicked on that link and now I'm getting emails from the Shift Network every day, just unsubscribe. That's what they tell you to do. But find out about Renee's course, because basically the times that we're living in right now, we have so much opportunity. It's hard to know exactly where the planet is evolving to and where all the climate changes are going to take us to. But what an opportunity for all of us to evolve on a level where we become more conscious and we wake up more and more every day. And the work that Renee is offering is, how do we wake up to a greater sense of ourselves? How do we bend time? How do we become the alchemist of our life and work with the winds as an ally, as partners of helping us to blow out of our lives those things that are no longer working with us, so that we can truly step into our authentic identity And whatever happens on the planet, whatever change in consciousness you make contributes to what's happening in the collective, and it helps to move the collective along. And so always looking for who's going to give you the greatest transformation. And I can definitely say that Renee is not going to do anything surface in this course. She's going to go for it. And I hope that you go for it with her.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm like, let's talk about that. It's like when we start, people like really say nice things. It's like, oh, how do I own that? I'm going to breathe that in. You know, so often, like when people say, oh, that's a really nice, oh, I got it at Marshall's. No, I'm going to breathe that in. I'm going to take that wind in. Thank you, Sandra. And it's just such an honor every week and to talk to you. And I think that moves us nicely into our next part of the conversation about, so we have this great rapport going on, and we talk about things to get you sparked on, to give you a little bit of wind towards it. However, a lot of times people come over to the Shaman's Cave and they're asking for, you know, really deep information that, I don't know about you, but I had to go really be with, you know, 5-day intensive on how to do death work, or how to do soul work, or how to do depossession work. I'm trying to use some of your languaging too around those. And so it's not something that I can easily share on the wall, nor Sandra. And we don't really want to, because that would give us karmic responsibility in my worldview. If you go off and, you know, think you're, you know, depossessing and, you know, you pick up an entity, then I have some responsibilities for that. So we purposely keep it just put your foot in kind of information.
Yeah, you know, I train practitioners, and I have been since I very early on. And one of the things that I teach my practitioners is that when you perform extraction work, which is the pulling out of pains and illnesses from a person's body, which can cure cancer, localized illness, it can cure depression, it can cure chronic anger, if those are the issues, if there's an intrusion in the body that is blocking the energy that is creating emotional or physical illness. But the danger is, unless you really do the training, you can take that illness on for yourself, and it happens all the time. With psychopomp work, the crossing of the deceased over, sometimes the deceased are really happy to go over. We're just waiting for somebody to show them the way. But sometimes they're like, oh, I'm not ready to leave, and here's a body. I'll take yours. And before you know it, you're possessed when you were doing a possession for a client. And with restoring power to a client who's lost it, who's dealing with misfortune, who's dealing with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, and also with the process, the beautiful ceremony of soul retrieval, which brings back those parts of ourselves that we lost through trauma. You can't hurt yourself as the practitioner, but with those methods, you can really harm a client. And with soul retrieval, people have ended up in mental institutions. A beautiful healing method, but because in the Western world, people didn't take the time to learn the method correctly, and ended up creating great harm. So shamanism is a practice that dates back tens of thousands of years, about 100,000 years. And just go into your heart and think about the appropriateness of learning how to take practices that are 100,000 years old and learn about them with a short Facebook post. It's insulting to the work, it's dishonoring to the work, it's dishonoring to yourself because you can get hurt, and it's dishonoring to your clients. And somebody brought up on another group's Facebook page today, which I had to jump in to and say something. What about all these courses coming up on certifying shamans? And that's my biggest trigger. I have threatened organizations that I teach for that I will go after them if you start creating certification programs. Because number one, as Renee was talking, it's the winds that do the work. It's not Renee that does the work for you. In shamanism, it's the spirits that do the work. It's not the human that does the work. We're just a vessel. And so the spirits pick the vessel, not an organization. The spirits pick the right vessel. And so it's the spirits who decide who's going to be a shaman and who's not, because you're their vessel. And so when organizations and teachers start trying to bring in certification programs, which are usually based around trying to make more money, that's my projection. Sorry if this comes up against anybody else. You're putting clients in danger, and it's such a dishonoring thing to do to this path, because it has nothing to do with a piece of paper. It has to do with the depth of initiations that you went through, and when the spirits choose you to do this work. And I got to tell you, it's probably the hardest path that you can choose on the planet. And so it's nothing to desire. And every shaman around the world will tell you that.
Right? How long did I resist? I think for years. And you know, and still like people will say, well, how did you get here? Or how'd you get there? And I'm thinking like, well, the winds did all of that. I mean, you know, I just said yes sometimes. And sometimes I said no. That reminds me of something, and I think this is a really important distinction for why people don't want to learn. So yesterday, I was talking to a client who was kind of just checking in with me after a long period, and he said, I've had this question about your wind whistles. He said, you know, when I did the Lakota and I did this, you know, I had to earn my pipe, or I had to earn, and I'm there like, okay, well, the winds are telling me that people deserve these tools. First of all, you deserve to have the tools to help you heal. And it wasn't an either or anymore. That what was taken away from us 10,000 years ago was the ability to have that direct revelation. And now those doorways are open again, that you could have those direct revelations. However, there's some training involved. Like I remember one time when I was doing medicine work, had I not had those basic training skills, I could be one of those people Sandra was talking about, being in a mental institution, because I went so far away. It was only those good tracking tools that I had that allowed me to stay with the rattle, that made me know that this was indeed the path back. And so that's what concerns me about all of these, you know, ayahuasca ceremonies and things cropping up, is that people go to them without they're not prepared. They don't have the solid footing that they need. And they're, you know, throwing, you know, their fate to the wind, so to speak. And so I'm so grateful that I had the solid training that I had, but that wasn't what made me a shaman. I didn't even really know, and that I didn't ever really own that until like about 6 months ago, when Sandra said, oh yeah, when you had that dismemberment, that's when you were called. And it never even occurred to me, because I was given that 2-year training was what gave me credibility, when the truth was I was called. And then I took a 2-year training. Then I sat in a Lakota lodge for 10 years. I did all of those things because I had answered the call somewhere else in my life.
Right, absolutely. And, you know, and I know that some of you are sitting and listening to this and saying, Well, Sandra's contradicting herself because she keeps saying that shamanism is a practice of direct revelation. And now she's talking about that you need to take workshops. And I want to speak about that because shamanism is a system of direct revelation. And once you connect with the helping spirits, they will teach you everything that you need to know. But what I've learned, and now we're seeing it even at a more exponential level, is that bridging shamanism into a modern day psychologically sophisticated culture has opened up wormholes and issues that there wasn't one of us that was anticipating any of this, including the spirits. And what shamans had to deal with their clients was completely different, because you have to understand that clients went in with full and absolute trust to their shaman. And in today's world, people are finding shamanic practitioners on websites and through books and word of mouth. And basically, what we've all learned is that the biggest part of the training is how to bridge this work into a modern day culture. And that's where teachers are really helpful. So, like, where the spirits will teach you a lot of things, but did you consult with the spirits on how to prepare yourself? And all the tasks and all the things like Renee did to prepare herself for doing this work. And so a teacher can point out to you all the different elements that go into doing great shamanic work, so that once you become that vessel, you're not only integrating the spirit work into what you're doing, but with the help of a human teacher who's been going through this already for years before, you also learn how do you bridge this into a modern day culture, because shamans did not work in a technological culture where people were disconnected from nature. And they didn't work with such a psychologically sophisticated culture where the clients argue about everything that you do in your shamanic practice. A client would never in a million years go to an indigenous shaman and start to argue with them about what they're doing. But trust me, clients do today. So there are a lot of elements that those of us who've been out there pioneering the work for 10, 20, 30 years or more, we've learned things that are crucial pieces of information for upcoming practitioners. And then you can have a stronger relationship with your helping spirits when you learn some of the more practical things that go along with shamanism that the spirits are basically not going to teach you, because they're going to assume that you're doing your personal work. Your spirit will not do your personal work for you.
Absolutely. And we have a show coming up in a few weeks about that idea of jealousy, envy, and, our susceptibility to it. A couple of weeks ago, I went over to help a friend, and I wasn't like Sandra said, that we should be preparing for ourselves when we go into these situations. And for some reason, I was bringing dinner and I wasn't prepared. And so I walked into the healing room and boom, I almost got knocked on my ass out the door. And I thought, oh, she's winding up those crystals again. And it took me into the middle of the week when I was bitchy, grouchy, angry, to realize that I had gotten hit by some energy that was ricocheting off of her crystals, looking for any host possible. And I had to stop. I had to clear myself, take salt baths. I had to do all of those things and to keep looking inside. Why am I so bitchy? Why am I so angry? What's really going on here when everything in my outward life is going good? Next time, before I went to do, now I knew I'm going for healing work. Next time I'm like, I'll protect it up and, I feel great. But because we can get off our game. And that's where someone like talking to Sandra or, a lot of her shamanic teachers, or even in my Wind Clan, some of the, the more mastery students, it's good to have that integrity check-in of the humankind when you get too big for your bird bath, because we need that. That's spirit will keep giving you. And then you're like, my ego's getting bigger, bigger, bigger. And, that's part of the path too, is right sizing yourself. So you do this work with the humility of the mountain shamans.
Absolutely. And, I've said this on another one of our shows. I do love the fact that my spirits have taught me all the healing ceremonies that I lead. I love that. But now, at the age of 67, after 35 years of doing this work, now I'm seeing the negative side of not having any elders to guide me. I'm really seeing the negative side of that. And it's not that they could teach me better ceremonies. The spirits are always going to teach me the best ceremonies, but elders would have helped me to navigate the personal challenges of being on a shamanic path. And I was on my own doing that, and I ended up not taking care of myself and ended up paying a price for that. And so it's an interesting conversation of, yes, you can learn everything from the spirits, but teachers who have a certain amount of experience can guide you as a person, what Renee was saying, how to make sure that your ego isn't getting too inflated, because actually the spirits will teach you if your ego gets too inflated. But trust me, you would have preferred to have worked with a human teacher on this than the spirits, because the spirits' way of teaching you how to deal with your ego is just to blow up your life, period. A teacher, so you have no ego, period.
That's funny.
A teacher will teach you step-by-step ways of how to work on yourself. So you can see, you can throw yourself to the wind, you can throw yourself to the spirits, and you learn so much. It's just, there are so many of us who pioneered the path of bridging shamanism into a modern day culture. And why not jump in and learn from people who have the skills, so that you don't have to make all the same mistakes over again that every one of us made 100 times to get to the place where we are now. Where we can help you to prepare in a better way. And we can help you to understand how to keep non-ordinary reality pristine, which is a whole nother conversation that we can come into at another time, because non-ordinary reality is getting quite polluted from the lack of respect that people in shamanic cultures entered into the unseen worlds with. They didn't take all their daily stuff into their spiritual work with them. And this is a very big conversation too, because it's actually affecting the whole spiritual collective and what's possible for us and what we can do. So there's a lot to think about in all of this. And we're just planting this show. I see this show as not a teaching show. It's a show of planting seeds that will grow inside of you in time if you make a commitment to the work and the path.
And I see it as two elders getting together every week to feel supported and have that support that, that you get to like eavesdrop in on. Because for me, it's like really supportive as well that we get together and have these conversations, because they're not conversations you're hearing at Starbucks, and so keep joining us and come over to the Shaman's Cave. And if you want to receive this in your inbox every week, go over to shamanstv.com. And I'm working on changing up the meditation so you can get a new one soon. And also, share it with your friends, because we hit 5,000 subscribers
Yay.
10 months into our show. And so at the rate we're going, by next year at this time, we'll have over 10,000 subscribers. And that's due to you and your loyalty and your commitment to keeping your side of the street clean too.
I couldn't have said that better. Thank you so much, Renee. And we wish everybody a beautiful day or evening. And Simon's come to visit us.
Yes.
Good blessings. So blessings to everyone. And thank you for your continued support. And thank you for coming back to the show. We really enjoy doing it.